And now the U.S. is about to shake out the global energy market with President Trump's plan to ramp up oil production. But what does this mean for Nigeria's oil exports, revenue, and relationships with other major players in the energy market? Today on The Conversation, we will be examining the potential impact on Nigeria's economy, as well as exploring strategies for mitigating any negative effects, while also capitalizing on new opportunities. Our guest is Olabode Sowunmi, an energy expert. Well, you're welcome to Business Express, and Happy New Year. It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Right. No, the pleasure is mine. Always a pleasure to be.
You know, when my producer told me that you will be available for the program, I thought you were with the energy people out there in Tanzania. You know.
Regrettably, I could not make this particular trip.
Okay, $40 billion, as said by the African president of African Development Bank to energy, access to energy. What do you make of that pledge?
Okay, so when development banks and multinational agencies roll out these figures, whether it be the World Bank, whether it be IMF, the devil is always in the details, because you see sometimes it can even just be consultancy. So we need to know this. We need to know how much of it is going to West Africa, how much is going to East Africa, and what is it for. It is only then that we can start to appreciate that, because you will see that over the years, be it USAID, be it DFID, they will roll out these very humongous and interesting figures for development in terms of cost that they have sunk into the Nigerian, or should I say African estate. But when you now ask people where the rubber touches the road, there is always a gap. So rather than celebrate the figures for what it is, which is a good thing, don't get me wrong, it's actually more important to know what the details are. Okay. Is it going to go into feasibility studies?
So it should not be just something on paper, it should maybe announcement, it should be, let's see it, implementation and things like that.
Yes, which is also a journalistic responsibility. So the journalists who were there also owe it to themselves and to the people that they have a responsibility to ask for some of these details. It's just not enough to announce the figures.
Okay. Now, the U.S. president is actually shaking up things. In fact, he's been a great disruptor in 2025, starting from his when he took oath of office. And the call to OPEC is to lower oil prices. And so much so that right now we have so much expectation from oil when you talk about generating revenue in Nigeria. Lowering oil prices, that's the warning from President Trump, or you face tariff. What do you make of this development, and how is it actually shaping up the oil market?
Okay, so personally, I am actually amazed at the level of ignorance that is out there in terms of what one person can do or what one group of people can do to the collective. As part of the President Trump's initiatives, policies, and directions that he has given in the first few days, one of which was to increase oil production within the American subcontinent.
Of course.
So that is significantly more likely to affect oil price than his directive. I'm completely at the loss of how his directive is going to directly impact OPEC and OPEC members. I mean, it's going to put some pressure because they are an important stakeholder in the business. But in terms of a directive that must be obeyed like a law, I sincerely doubt that.
Because right now the conversation is the fact that is on the fact that there's already the oil is somehow, or the market is somehow oversupply, most especially in recent times. So with Nigeria, we expect oil prices to be high so that we can get more revenue. And with what is happening, if U.S. now decides to put in more oil out there, I think. How do you think it's going to affect the country?
Okay, so it's, the elders have a saying that when they say the heavens will fall, the heavens will fall. It doesn't fall on the head of one person. It falls on everybody. So there is a huge stakeholder community globally for the oil and gas industry. If you start from the oil majors, that's the IOCs, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Total, that's any. It's not just Nigeria that's going to suffer it. So there are also some very strong global players. You are talking about the UAE, you're talking about Saudi Arabia, who, by the way, have been the most profitable group in terms of income for countries and growth in the last 4-5 years. I mean, since 2020. So it's a threat, it's a challenge, but it's not necessarily the downfall. So one of the things we also should be doing as a people is to strengthen our non-oil exports, non-oil production capacity and the export that is related. But whether it will ultimately deter or disrupt the budget process is something that remains to be seen. Like I said, there are many factors that do happen within the oil and gas sector. There's current crisis in Israel and Palestine. What happens if there's war in, say, Libya again, and Libya's exportation capacity is limited? So we come to about the same thing. So it's too early to say. Let's see the impact of the drilling that has been ordered, because even that drilling is not going to happen in 1 week. Usually there are oil wells that have been capped. For them to remove the cap takes a process. It's not like a day or 2 days decision. It takes a process. So we don't need to get ahead of ourselves. Yes, we need to be in reality of the threats, the challenges that these things are posing, but it's not like it's doomsday yet.
Okay, which area do you think Nigeria should focus on when it comes to the non-oil sector?
So that's not my area of expertise, but okay. I do know that there has been a lot of income generation from agriculture. I do know that there is a lot of income generation that can come in from solid minerals. And I do know that there is a potential, and I use the word very firmly, of income generation to come in from sports. But sports is one area that has not been properly developed. I do have a friend who is a medical doctor but is into sports medicine, and he talks about all the things that happen. And basically, as a people, virtually every local government has the potential to export athletes globally. So sports is a potential revenue earner.
Now, talking about our oil resources, how do you think Nigeria can leverage its existing refining capacity to add value to its somehow domestic economy, and what investment are actually needed to somehow expand capacity?
Okay, so not all problems can be solved with money. So when we talk about investment, when we talk about what's happening within the downstream sector, it's moving in the right direction. So there's competition, they're trying to balance themselves. There's new regulatory ethos, which the regulator is also trying to do his work, given the fact that it's also a new regulator. So we have new players. So at the moment, there's a tussle, there's a push and a pull. And that is important and is necessary for Nigeria so that our downstream sector in terms of its growth can be organic and can be relevant. So I'm not so sure the solution to all of those problems is money, more money or investment. It's rather the fact that there has to be the push and pull for regulatory strength to have its hold, and for those who are players to understand the fact that they can do more or they are limited to the terms of their contract. So it's just a normal evolution that we are in. If you are going to give birth, if a woman gets pregnant, she's going to spend the 9 months. It doesn't matter whether she's a tramp or a princess. Okay. The gestation period for every living being is 9 months.
Of course. Well, before I let you go, just with the the development, with what we're seeing in the market, how can Nigeria stay competitive? Looking at its vast oil resources.
Well, downstream sector is where the rubber touches the road. Oil sector needs to meet the energy demand of the local consumption. Gas itself needs to live up to the bid. So I would want to think the decade of gas that had been set up has dropped the ball in the last few months, maybe also because of all the talk around downstream. But there needs to be more emphasis on it, particularly in the priority areas where government has identified, one of which is gas to power, which has its own limitations because of the liquidity in the power sector. Gas-based industries, those are industries that use gas for as raw material. So in as much as we're talking about mini LNG plants that are being licensed by the regulator, it's also a call and a challenge for the entrepreneurial capacity to look at mini gas-based industries. Of course, there is the LPG, which is where the woman smiles when it comes to oil and gas. And that also needs to be, the supply chain for that needs to be expanded. And so that reforestation can be stronger.
Okay, thank you very much, Olabode Sowunmi. It's always a pleasure having you.
Pleasure, so much.
The program.